She got married again. Just forgot she was already married.
12 years of marriage, and I genuinely believed I'd figured out the whole suburban life thing. You know what I'm talking about? Wake up every morning, kiss your wife goodbye, head to your accounting job like a responsible adult, come home to a decent meal, maybe watch some streaming shows before bed. Nothing fancy, nothing worth posting about, just solid, dependable married existence. I had the complete package: dependable husband who never forgot anniversaries, steady paycheck from my CPA practice, nice 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and a decent neighborhood, and most importantly, reliable Wi-Fi that never crashed during playoffs. What more could anyone want? Turns out, maybe a wife who actually saw me as her husband instead of some glorified roommate with bill-paying responsibilities. My wife, Jennifer, worked in pharmaceutical sales. At least, that's what her business card said. She traveled constantly, like obsessively constantly. 2 weeks out of every month, sometimes 3. Hotels in Chicago, conferences in Boston, client meetings in Atlanta. This woman accumulated more frequent flyer miles than most pilots. But I trusted her completely. Never once questioned why her business trips always seemed to line up perfectly with European wine harvest seasons, or why her suitcase consistently smelled like expensive men's cologne that definitely wasn't mine. I just figured she was working hard, networking aggressively, climbing that corporate ladder, building our financial future together. So there I was, living my best, completely delusional life when the universe decided to slam me face first into reality. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember specifically because Tuesdays are laundry day in my world, and I'm annoyingly strict about my routines. I was standing in our bedroom folding Jennifer's yoga pants that she definitely used for actual yoga and not, as I would soon discover, for romantic evening strolls through Venetian streets, when my phone buzzed. It was Mark, my college buddy who now works in IT and spends most of his free time online causing chaos for entertainment. The text said, "Dude, why is your wife wearing a wedding dress in Italy standing next to some random guy in a tux?" Not gonna lie, my first reaction was thinking Mark had finally lost his mind to those ridiculous energy drinks he consumes like water. My second thought was he'd confused some random wedding photo with someone else entirely. But then the image loaded on my screen, and suddenly those yoga pants I was folding felt like they weighed approximately 1,000 pounds each. There she was, my wife of 12 years, my partner in suburban monotony, my supposed soulmate, standing on what looked exactly like the Amalfi Coast, wearing a designer white dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Next to her, grinning like he'd won the lottery jackpot, was some guy I'd never seen before in my entire life. He was wearing a tuxedo, holding her hand, and they were completely surrounded by people I absolutely recognized. Her parents, Henry and Patricia, her 2 sisters, Natalie and Emma, her brother Tyler, and even her eccentric Aunt Diane, who constantly smells like incense and conspiracy theories. My heart did this weird stuttering thing that probably isn't medically advisable. My wallet, if wallets could experience physical reactions, probably passed out right there in my back pocket. My brain just sat there for a solid 30 seconds, repeating the word nope, like some malfunctioning robot before finally switching to, "Oh, so we're doing plot twists now. Fantastic." I scrolled through more photos Mark kept sending because apparently this little family vacation had its own dedicated Instagram hashtag, Jennifer and Daniel Forever. Daniel, that was his name. Daniel, the deceiving dirtbag, as I would mentally call him going forward. Because anyone who marries someone else's wife while she's technically still married is either completely stupid or incredibly morally bankrupt, possibly both. There were pictures of champagne toasts, elaborate sunset dinners. The entire family clustered together like some disturbed Brady Bunch reunion episode. My personal favorite photo showed Jennifer's mom, Patricia, wearing white to what was obviously her daughter's second wedding. Because apparently when your daughter commits bigamy, the socially appropriate response is dressing like you're also getting married. The absolute best part, and I'm using best here with maximum sarcasm layered on thick, they'd left me a grocery list. An actual physical grocery list magnetically stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a beach ball that said, "Life's better at the beach." The list included items like organic quinoa, unsweetened almond milk, kale but specifically the expensive kind, and toilet paper but only the luxury brand because Patricia's visiting next week. Patricia wasn't visiting next week. Patricia was currently in Italy watching her daughter marry someone who absolutely wasn't me. Also, they completely forgot to pay the electric bill. I discovered this because the disconnection notice arrived that exact same afternoon, which really added some nice dramatic atmosphere to my complete mental breakdown. I didn't cry, though. I want that clearly on record. I did not shed one single tear over Jennifer and her Italian wedding adventure with the 6 freeloaders who apparently thought destination wedding meant abandoning the guy who's been funding all their lives. Instead, I walked downstairs very calmly, made myself a strong cup of coffee because this situation definitely called for something stronger than my usual flavored nonsense, grabbed a pen and one of those legal pads I keep for tax season, and sat down at our kitchen table. That same table where we'd probably eaten 3,000 dinners together, where we discussed future plans and shared dreams and all that romantic garbage people say when they're pretending their marriage isn't held together by streaming service passwords and mutual tolerance of each other's existence. I started writing, planning, scheming, if you want the technical term, because here's the thing about betrayal. It either completely breaks you or it makes you incredibly creative. And I was feeling exceptionally creative right then. Every single thing we owned, every property, every account, every car, every stock portfolio, every subscription to every streaming platform, absolutely all of it was registered in my name only. Why? Because approximately 5 years ago, Jennifer had looked at me with those big, trustworthy eyes and said, "Honey, you're so much better with finances than me. I trust you completely with everything." She trusted me completely. Past tense. Very extremely past tense now. I smiled then when she said those words. I remember feeling all warm and appreciated, like I was the responsible adult in our partnership, holding everything together. I laughed now sitting at that kitchen table because the irony was so incredibly thick you could cut it with a knife. While Jennifer and Daniel were probably dancing at some romantic sunset reception, clinking expensive glasses and celebrating their so-called true love, I was drafting what history would later remember, at least in my mind, as the Great Property Vanishing Act of 2024. It had a nice dramatic ring to it, sort of like a magic show performance. Except instead of making rabbits disappear, I'd be making houses, bank accounts, and comfortable lifestyles vanish into absolutely nothing. I took another long sip of coffee, stared hard at my handwritten notes, and started thinking seriously about Monday morning. That's when I would call David Chen, the absolute best attorney I knew, the guy who'd helped me with estate planning and various business contracts for years. David was incredibly sharp, ruthlessly efficient when necessary, and had a sense of humor darker than my current emotional state. I could already predict his reaction in my head, a long, low whistle followed by, "Well, this is definitely going to be interesting and fun." Operation Vanishing Assets was about to officially commence, and I had the entire weekend to perfect every single detail down to the last period. 1 full week passed, and let me tell you, that week felt significantly longer than every superhero movie combined, including all the post-credit scenes. I went through all the normal motions of regular life like some kind of emotionless autopilot zombie. Showed up to work on time, crunched numbers for clients, responded to boring emails, pretended I actually cared about quarterly financial projections, all while my phone kept constantly buzzing with notifications that made my blood pressure spike dangerously. See, Jennifer and her merry band of family traitors had apparently decided their little Italian adventure needed to be extensively documented for posterity, which in modern terms means they plastered it across every single social media platform known to humanity: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn for some completely inexplicable reason, because apparently professional networking sites are now appropriate venues for broadcasting your bigamy to the world. The photos arrived in constant waves, each one more personally insulting than the previous. There was the happy couple on a gondola in Venice with Jennifer looking all dreamy-eyed, while Daniel rode them through canals like he was auditioning for a cheap romance novel cover. There were champagne toasts at what appeared to be a 5-star restaurant with Mediterranean views. Everyone raising their glasses like they were celebrating something wholesome instead of the complete, systematic destruction of a 12-year marriage. Her sister Natalie posted an entire carousel of images with the caption, "Best Destination Wedding Ever," complete with heart emojis and hashtags like "Family First" and "Love Wins." I desperately wanted to comment, "Yeah, love wins and loyalty gets completely destroyed," but I had significantly bigger plans brewing than petty social media arguments. The absolute worst part, and there were so many serious contenders for worst part that I could have legitimately hosted an award ceremony, was watching Jennifer's mom, Patricia, parading around in these photos wearing white. Not ivory-colored, not cream, not champagne, but straight-up bridal white. like she was actively competing with her own daughter for attention. In one particularly rage-inducing photo, Patricia was standing directly between Jennifer and Daniel with her arms wrapped around both of them, beaming at the camera like she'd personally arranged this entire disaster herself. But the real final straw on this dumpster fire Sunday was Henry, Jennifer's father, who apparently decided to embrace the role of family spokesman and enthusiastic hype man. This guy was posting multiple times daily with captions that made me want to throw my phone directly into a wood chipper. "Proud of my baby girl for following her heart," he wrote under a sunset photo of the newlyweds kissing. "Sir," I wanted to furiously reply, "your baby girl followed her heart straight out of our shared mortgage and directly into financial fraud territory. But sure, let's romantically call it love." Another post showed the entire family at some fancy Italian villa with Henry's caption reading, "Sometimes life gives you a second chance at happiness. Sometimes life also gives you a first chance to not raise a lying, cheating, morally bankrupt daughter, Henry, but I guess we can't all be perfect parents." I spent those 7 long days oscillating wildly between pure rage and this weird cold calculation that I genuinely didn't know I was capable of producing. My buddy Mark kept calling repeatedly to check on my mental state, probably expecting to find me drowning in tears surrounded by empty ice cream containers like some romantic comedy protagonist. Instead, he found me stone cold sober, systematically taking screenshots of every single post, every comment, every like, organizing them all into a folder I labeled evidence of absolutely zero remorse whatsoever. Mark nervously asked if I was genuinely okay, and I told him I was significantly better than okay. I was focused with laser precision. He laughed uncomfortably and said I sounded vaguely like a serial butcher. I told him that serial butchers don't file extensive legal paperwork, they just eliminate people. So technically, I was more like a serial property redistributor, which is completely different. While Jennifer and company were actively living their best La Dolce Vita lifestyle, posting pictures of pasta and Prosecco like they were filming a tourism commercial for the Italian government, I was drinking my own kind of beverage, ice-cold revenge. And let me tell you, revenge tastes absolutely nothing like Prosecco. It's quiet, methodical, chilled, and best served with extensive ironclad legal documentation backing it up. Every single night that week, I sat at my kitchen table with a constantly growing stack of important papers. Property deeds, bank statements, car titles, investment portfolios, insurance policies, everything we'd systematically accumulated over 12 years of marriage. Every single asset that Jennifer had trustingly put in my name because I was supposedly so much better with finances. Past me had been responsible and meticulously organized. Present me was grateful as hell for past me's obsessive attention to detail. By Thursday, I'd made my final decision. By Friday, I'd compiled all my documents into one neat, organized folder. By Saturday, I was actively rehearsing my upcoming phone conversation with David Chen, my attorney, trying to find the perfect balance between I need legitimate legal help and I'm about to commit the most justified act of financial retaliation in modern recorded history. David was genuinely good people. We'd known each other since I'd helped him navigate his taxes during a particularly messy IRS audit, and we'd stayed close friends ever since that ordeal. He was exactly the kind of lawyer who understood that sometimes the law isn't purely about what's technically legal, it's about what's fundamentally right. And sometimes what's right is making absolutely certain that cheaters don't profit from their cheating. Sunday evening, while the Italian adventure crew was posting their final sunset photos with captions like, "Until next time Italia," and "Best family vacation ever," I was sitting on my back porch with a cold beer watching the sun slowly go down over my neighborhood. My house, my life that I'd built entirely with my own money and my own consistent effort, while Jennifer was apparently building a completely separate life with someone else behind my back. I pulled out my phone, found David's contact information, and stared at it for a solid 5 minutes straight. This was genuinely it, the absolute point of no return. Once I made this call, once I set this comprehensive plan in motion, there would be no going back whatsoever. No reconciliation, no couples therapy, no marriage counseling, none of that hopeful garbage that people desperately try when relationships catastrophically fall apart. I hit the call button. David answered on the second ring, sounding relaxed and probably slightly buzzed from his own Sunday evening wind-down routine. "Hey man, what's up? Don't tell me you need tax help on a weekend." I laughed, but it came out darker than I'd intended. "Nah, David, I need help with something significantly more interesting than taxes. You got a minute?" There was a pause, then his voice changed dramatically. Sharper, more alert, more professional. For you always. What's going on? I took a long drink of my beer, watched a bird fly across my yard, and said the exact words that would change absolutely everything. My wife just married another guy in Italy. Her whole family was there, and I need to make absolutely sure that when they come home, they have literally nothing to come home to. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds, but felt like an eternity. Then David started genuinely laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh that continued for a solid 30 seconds. When he finally caught his breath, he said, "Okay, I'm going to need you to start from the very beginning and tell me absolutely everything because this sounds like the most entertaining case I've handled all year." So I did exactly that. I told him about the Instagram posts, the white dress, Daniel, the deceiving dirtbag, the grocery list, the unpaid electric bill, and most importantly, the fact that every single thing we owned was legally registered in my name only. When I finished, there was another pause, and then David said something that made me smile genuinely for the first time in a week. Operation Vanishing Assets starts Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. My office. Bring coffee and every document you've got. This is going to be absolutely beautiful. Monday morning arrived with that crisp autumn air that makes people post inspirational quotes about new beginnings and fresh starts, which felt weirdly appropriate, considering I was about to orchestrate the most spectacular vanishing act since Houdini made elephants disappear on stage. I showed up at David's office at exactly 9 a.m., carrying 2 large coffees and a messenger bag, absolutely stuffed with every piece of documentation proving I was the sole legal owner of basically everything Jennifer thought we owned together. David's office was in one of those converted brownstone buildings downtown that lawyers love because it makes them look sophisticated and established, all dark wood paneling and expensive leather furniture. David greeted me with a handshake that lingered just long enough to communicate, "I'm ready to destroy some lives today," which was precisely the energy I needed right then. We sat down in his conference room, spread out all my documents across the massive table, and got to serious work. The plan was simple in theory, but required surgical precision in execution. Sell the house immediately, liquidate joint accounts properly, transfer assets legally, and do it all in such a way that nobody could come back later claiming I'd done anything wrong whatsoever. See, that's the beautiful thing about revenge when you're the responsible person who actually read the fine print and kept meticulous receipts. Everything I was about to do was perfectly legal. Morally questionable according to some people's standards, maybe, but legal. Absolutely ironclad. David looked over the property deed first, his eyes scanning the document with the kind of intense focus that made him charge $400 an hour. "Okay, so the house is solely in your name, purchased before marriage, never refinanced with her name added. That's clean. You can sell this tomorrow if you wanted to." I nodded, sipping my coffee, and David continued. "Joint accounts are trickier. But since you're still legally married and there's no separation agreement, you can withdraw your portion. I'd strongly recommend taking exactly 50% to avoid any potential claims of financial misuse." I interrupted him there. "David, I'm not trying to steal her money. I'm trying to make sure she understands that actions have serious consequences. Take 50%, move it to a new account in my name only. Leave her half completely untouched." He raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "Look at you being all ethical in the middle of your revenge plot. I genuinely respect it." The real estate agent David connected me with was this absolute tornado of a woman named Michelle who wore power suits and had the kind of aggressive optimism that probably annoyed people at parties, but was perfect for selling houses quickly. She came by that afternoon, walked through every room with the speed of someone who'd seen 1,000 homes and could price one in her sleep, and declared, "I can have this sold in 10 days, maybe less. The market's hot, location's perfect, this place is move-in ready. How much are you looking to get?" I gave her a number that would cover the remaining mortgage and leave me with a decent chunk to start over fresh. She nodded, pulled out her phone, and started texting potential buyers before she'd even left my driveway. True to her word, Michelle had 3 solid offers by Wednesday. By Friday, we'd accepted one, a young couple with a newborn baby who loved the neighborhood and didn't ask too many questions about why I was selling so fast. I told them I was relocating for work, which wasn't entirely a lie if you considered relocating away from betrayal a legitimate career move. The closing was scheduled for the following Thursday, which meant I had exactly 1 week to pack up 12 years of my life, separate what was genuinely mine from what was hers, and move into my new apartment before Jennifer and her traveling circus returned from their Italian fantasy. Packing was weirdly therapeutic, honestly. I went through every room, every closet, every drawer, making 3 distinct piles: mine, hers, garbage. Most of the furniture I sold directly to the new owners, because honestly, I didn't want anything that reminded me of the life I'd been stupid enough to think was real. The couch where we'd watch TV together? Gone. The dining table where we'd hosted dinner parties? Sold. The bed we'd slept in for 12 years? I briefly considered setting it on fire for dramatic effect, but that seemed illegal and messy, so I just left it for the buyers. I kept my books, my clothes, my laptop, some kitchen essentials, and a couple of photographs from before Jennifer, back when I was just a regular guy who didn't know his future wife was capable of this level of duplicity. The apartment I'd rented was in a converted warehouse building with exposed brick walls and those industrial-style windows that let in tons of natural light. It was the kind of place designers call urban minimalist and regular people call empty-looking. But I absolutely loved it. No memories attached, no ghosts haunting corners, no reminders of the past decade I'd apparently completely wasted. I moved in over the weekend with help from Mark and a couple other buddies who showed up with beer and pizza and the kind of male emotional support that involves not asking too many probing questions and making jokes about bachelor pads. By Sunday night, I was sitting in my new living room on a couch I'd bought that afternoon from IKEA, eating Chinese takeout straight from the container and feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Genuine peace. The house was sold, the money was transferred, my stuff was here, and in approximately 72 hours, Jennifer and her family would return home to find absolutely nothing where our home used to be. David had handled all the legal paperwork meticulously, made sure every signature was in place and every document was properly filed. But I wasn't quite done yet. See, I have this petty streak I didn't know existed until Jennifer brought it out, and that petty streak demanded one final dramatic touch. I drove back to the old house on Monday evening, let myself in with my key one last time, and stood in the completely empty living room where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases and all those milestones that apparently meant absolutely nothing. The walls were bare, floors were swept clean, and the whole place echoed in a way that felt both sad and deeply satisfying. I pulled out a piece of paper and a marker I'd brought specifically for this exact purpose and wrote in big, bold letters, "Welcome home, family. Hope customs didn't confiscate your morals along with your dignity." I taped it to the wall right where you'd see it immediately upon walking in, stepped back to admire my handiwork, and felt a surge of satisfaction that probably wasn't healthy, but definitely felt earned. Then I locked the door, dropped the keys in the mailbox for the new owners, and drove away from that chapter of my life without looking back, even once. 2 weeks after I'd moved into my new apartment and approximately 3 hours before Jennifer's flight was scheduled to land, I did something that probably qualified me for some kind of pettiness hall of fame. I grabbed a large coffee, a bag of popcorn from the convenience store, and drove across town to park on the street directly opposite what used to be our house. I'm not proud of this moment, but I'm not ashamed either. Because sometimes you need to witness the consequences of actions in real time. And sometimes you need to watch other people witness the consequences of their actions while you eat snacks like you're at the world's most satisfying drive-in movie theater. The new owners had already moved in over the weekend, and I could see their minivan in the driveway with one of those stick-figure family decals on the back window. They seemed nice, normal, the kind of people who'd probably never committed bigamy or abandoned their spouse for an Italian vacation with their new partner. My phone buzzed around 2 p.m. with a notification I'd been waiting for. The smart home alarm system still connected to my phone that I'd conveniently forgotten to disconnect. "Motion detected at front door," the alert read, and my heart started doing this weird, excited flutter. I sat up straighter in my car, adjusted my rearview mirror for optimal viewing, and watched as 3 taxis pulled up to the curb. Out they came like some deranged clown car routine. First was Jennifer looking tanned and relaxed in that post-vacation glow, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than the taxi ride. Right behind her came Daniel, looking exactly like the kind of guy who steals other people's wives. Too much hair gel, trying too hard shoes, and the confidence of someone who'd never been punched in the face but probably deserved it. Then came the supporting cast. Henry and Patricia looking exhausted, Natalie and Emma on their phones probably uploading vacation photos, Tyler struggling with approximately 17 pieces of luggage, and finally Aunt Diane wearing what looked like a caftan made of scarves. They all stood on the sidewalk organizing their luggage mountain, laughing about something. Then Jennifer turned toward the house. I watched her face change in real time. Confusion first, then disbelief, then this dawning horror that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deeply satisfying. She pulled off her sunglasses, blinked several times like maybe her eyes were playing tricks, and just stared at the house that definitely was not the house she'd left behind. Henry was first to actually move. He took 3 steps toward the driveway, stopped mid-stride like he'd walked into an invisible wall, and turned to look at Jennifer with an expression that clearly said, "What the hell is happening here?" Patricia clutched her husband's arm, her mouth opening and closing like a fish trying to figure out how to breathe air, and then she literally fainted. Just straight up, collapsed backward into a pile of suitcases, like some Victorian lady who'd seen something scandalous. Diane started waving her hands around, making these weird protective gestures, and Tyler dropped 2 bags shouting, "Is this the right address?" But the real star of this show was Jennifer, who let out a scream that probably scared birds 3 neighborhoods over. "Where is our house?" she shrieked, her voice cracking on the word house. She started running toward the property, her heels clicking on the pavement, and I swear I was gripping my steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The new owners heard the commotion because the front door opened and out came the husband looking genuinely concerned. "Can I help you folks?" he called out. Jennifer spun around and started marching toward him. "What are you doing in my house?" she demanded, pointing at him like he was the criminal. The guy looked confused now. "Ma'am, this is our house. We bought it 2 weeks ago. Closed on Thursday." Henry stepped forward, trying to use his dad voice. "There must be some mistake. This is my daughter's property. We've owned this house for 12 years. The new owner shook his head, looking more uncomfortable. "I don't know what to tell you, but we have all the paperwork. This is legally our home now." My phone started ringing. Then it rang again and again. Within 5 minutes, I had 47 missed calls. Not an exaggeration. I counted them later. From Jennifer, her parents, her siblings, even one from Aunt Diane. I let them all go to voicemail watching, as Jennifer paced back and forth on the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear, probably leaving me increasingly frantic messages I had zero intention of listening to. Finally, after the 47th call went unanswered, I decided it was time for my grand response. I pulled out my phone, found Jennifer's contact, which I'd already changed to the bigamist, because I'm petty like that, and typed out the message I'd been composing in my head for 2 weeks. House moved abroad, found true love and never looked back. Funny how that works. I hit send, watched her phone buzz from across the street, saw her look down at the screen, and witnessed her face go through approximately 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. The phone calls from lawyers started that evening. First guy named Richard Patterson introduced himself with this pompous voice. "Mr. Williams, I'm calling on behalf of my client Jennifer Caldwell Williams regarding the unauthorized sale of marital property." I took a long sip of beer before responding. "Unauthorized? That's interesting, Richard. See, I'm looking at the property deed right now, and it's got exactly one name on it, and that name is mine, so I'm not sure what's unauthorized about selling my own house." Papers shuffled on his end. "Yes, well, my client maintains she contributed financially to the household and therefore has a claim," I laughed. "Richard, buddy, I'm going to save you some billable hours here. Your client didn't contribute a single dollar to that house. Not the down payment, not the mortgage, not even property taxes. In fact, if you pull her bank statements, which I'm sure you'll do during discovery if you're dumb enough to actually file this lawsuit, you'll find that her entire salary went to funding what she called personal investments, which apparently included a secret boyfriend and a destination wedding in Italy. But hey, you seem like a smart guy, so I'm sure you already knew all this before calling me." The silence was delicious. "I'll need to consult with my client," he finally said, voice noticeably deflated. Over the next 3 days, I heard from 2 more lawyers, both calling with varying degrees of confidence that slowly evaporated as I explained the actual facts. The third one, a woman named Jennifer Corso, who at least seemed competent, actually apologized before hanging up and said, "Off the record, your wife is an idiot and you should change your locks." I thanked her and told her I'd already changed everything. Locks, passwords, PIN numbers, even my email address. What really eliminated me, though, was finding out through Mark's elaborate spy network that Jennifer had been telling her entire family for years that she'd paid for the house, not contributed to it, not helped with it, but straight up paid for it with her pharmaceutical sales money. Henry and Patricia apparently believed they'd invested in their daughter's real estate portfolio. Natalie thought she could potentially live there if she ever needed to. Tyler had been under the impression the house was some kind of family asset everyone had a stake in. The delusion was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then Jennifer posted on Facebook claiming her evil ex-husband had sold their house while she was abroad caring for her dying aunt. The post was accompanied by a sad photo with a caption that read, "Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest. My ex-husband sold our family home while I was in Europe caring for my dying aunt. I came home to nothing." The comments section filled up with sympathy and outrage, calling me every name in the book. So I replied with a screenshot from her Italian wedding, her and Daniel cutting cake while Henry gave a toast. My caption, "Your aunt named Daniel must be contagious. Wishing you both a speedy recovery from your sudden case of bigamy. Get well soon." The internet absolutely lost its mind. Within an hour, my post had more shares than her original. Within 2 hours, it spread to Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, where entire threads were dedicated to analyzing the drama. By dinner, entertainment news websites were picking it up. A local news crew showed up at my apartment. Reporter named Rebecca Summers asked if I'd share my side. I figured why not control the narrative, so I told her everything. The 12 years, the constant travel, the photo Mark sent, the Italian wedding, coming home to a grocery list, the property ownership, my legal right to sell. "What would you say to people who think selling the house was too harsh?" she asked. I'd been preparing for this. "I'd say I believe in recycling. They threw away loyalty. I recycled the property. Seemed fair." The segment aired 3 days later and went national viral. My inbox exploded with offers, book deals, podcast invitations, a therapist who specialized in infidelity recovery asking me to speak at her workshop. 6 weeks after the Italy disaster, I sat in a courthouse wearing the suit I'd bought for our anniversary dinner that never happened. David looked thrilled. "This is going to be beautiful. She's literally suing you because people found out she's a bigamist." Jennifer sat at the plaintiff's table with her fourth lawyer, a nervous young guy who kept shuffling papers. She wore designer sunglasses indoors and all black, very widow energy, dabbing at her eyes with tissues even though I saw zero actual tears. Judge Catherine Morrison reviewed the files looking thoroughly unimpressed. She called court to session. The young lawyer stood up, voice shaking. "Your Honor, my client has suffered immeasurable emotional distress. She returned from caring for a sick family member abroad to find her home sold without her knowledge." The court clerk actually snorted out loud. Judge Morrison asked Jennifer, "Do you have documentation proving ownership rights to the property?" Jennifer removed her sunglasses slowly. "Your Honor, it wasn't about legal ownership. My husband and I built a life there together. 10 years of memories. The house was ours in every way that mattered, even if the paperwork only had his name." The clerk's snort was louder this time. David stood up and laid out the folder. Property deeds, mortgage statements, tax records, all bearing my name only from before we married. Judge Morrison reviewed each document, her expression shifting to amusement. "Mrs. Williams, I'm looking at very clear documentation that Mr. Williams purchased this property solely in his name 3 years before your marriage. Can you show me any evidence of financial contribution?" Jennifer stammered. "I contributed to the household. I bought groceries sometimes. I decorated." David jumped on that. "Your Honor, buying occasional groceries and choosing throw pillows does not constitute property ownership. Additionally, the emotional distress she claims occurred while she was abroad celebrating her marriage to another man while still legally married to my client. I have documentation, social media posts, photographs, witness statements, confirming Mrs. Williams participated in a wedding ceremony in Italy." Judge Morrison didn't hesitate. "I'm ruling in favor of the defendant on all counts. Mr. Williams acted within his legal rights. The emotional distress claim is dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, I'm ordering Mrs. Williams to pay Mr. Williams' legal fees. Court adjourned." Jennifer sat frozen, then stood abruptly, knocking her chair backward. She stormed toward the exit, and as she passed, our table stopped and shouted, "You'll regret this!" I stood up slowly, buttoned my jacket, and called after her, "Already due, Jennifer? That wedding gift money I spent on you could have bought Bitcoin." People in the gallery laughed. Even Judge Morrison shook her head with amused resignation. A year later, I was thriving. New consulting business, butcher apartment, zero emotional parasites. I'd turned my story into a podcast called Property of Revenge, which blew up. Listeners sent fan art. Then one evening, while sipping whiskey on my balcony, my phone buzzed. Jennifer's name with the text. "I've had time to think. Maybe we could try again. Second chances?" I stared at those words for exactly 3 seconds before typing sorry. The house moved on, and so did I. Hit send. Smiled, took another sip. Because nothing feels better than turning heartbreak into humor, profits, and a life so good your ex wants back in. Too late. This property's permanently off the market.